we're going to focus on cultivating bravery, embrace opportunities, and manage change. What I'd like to emphasize with this workshop is that this is not a how to be brave. This is a acknowledge that we already are brave workshop. And so I hope that the information that I offer helps to affirm that for you. And as we go through exercises, if you have something in mind that is especially challenging, know that that's kind of a more advanced level. So my hope is that as we go through this process, if you were to choose something on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being extremely difficult, please go for more of that 3 to 5 range as we pick examples, just because we're practicing here. And as more challenges come up in our lives, it's good to have this practice so that we can gradually build our way up to those more intense or more demanding asks of ourselves. So the learning objectives for today, I'm going to share about the types of bravery and some information regarding how to cultivate a courageous mindset. We also have time to identify obstacles and motivators. We're going to do an exercise in reflecting on what's most important to us and maybe something that we want in our lives. And we're going to have time to experience some small actions and planning. That forward progress is very important for us and our well-being. We don't want anybody to feel stuck. So I'm going to try and support that. And then really, I hope that you will create new connections. You're going to have the chance, you get to know me, I'll be talking for a while, but also you'll have the chance to connect with other people in the group. And maybe where I'm offering tools that could help you create new connections or stronger connections with people in your own circle. So bravery, and I think everyone has different definitions of bravery, and we talk about bravery versus courage, or maybe they're interchangeable. But as I was doing some research to prepare for this workshop, I came across these 3 different types of bravery. And I found it helpful as a starting point because there are so many different ways to be brave. What some people consider, risking their life, that's brave. Others would consider, posting an opinion on social media to be brave. Or maybe deciding not to participate in something, remaining silent. Even that could be considered brave, depending on, the outcome and the values that people hold. So with the many different lenses of bravery, I find it helpful to look at it through these 3. So physical bravery. Physical bravery has to do with really the facing your fears and the potential for harm or risk. You're really putting yourself out there. So it could be, firefighter. These are the examples from the research link that I found on this via character strengths, which I'll share. But physical bravery. So really putting yourself out there, especially now. You could add to this list, anyone who is in healthcare or in the grocery stores, people who may be risking their health to provide a service. Psychological bravery has more to do with facing painful aspects of oneself. So if we think of physical bravery as the potential for, one of the experts I read said that there's the potential for tissue damage, like you could actually be cut or hurt with physical bravery. Psychological bravery is non-tissue damage. So there isn't the chance that, you'll be physically hurt, but there are different painful things that are happening to us, emotions we have, worries we have, and the way that we're thinking and feeling really factors into that. And so bravery sometimes is looking inward and facing those aspects. A moral bravery, this is essentially standing up for what you believe to be right, and what's most important to you. I kind of think of this as a social bravery. So as we think about the connections and interactions we have with people, sometimes it is important that we say something, or even if it may ruffle feathers or raise questions. This is another form of bravery. So the keys to bravery, and this is just there's a lot of information out there. I don't know if I said this already, but I've done my best to scan a collection of research that I feel supports us and our well-being, ultimately our happiness. I try and keep this relevant to current times as best I can, but things are moving so quickly right now. And so I hope that I present information that is somewhat evergreen and lasting, general enough that we can refer to this no matter what is happening around us, that this is something, a steady reference point. So a courageous mindset is this inner voice of strength, confidence, power, and passion. And you can cultivate a courageous mindset, and I'll share more about that in a minute. But it's really about how we're, thinking. We talk about, doing a superhero pose where you put your hands on your shoulders or put your hands on your hips and roll your shoulders back and look up slightly. And, even just taking this physical stance can give you a greater sense of courage, bravery, confidence. And it takes active, reminding. We need to activate this courageous mindset. And the more we do that, it becomes like second nature. But it is something that we need to consciously do. A sense of agency is also key. So what I mean by sense of agency versus inagency is that you have influence. Knowing you have influence in a situation, you have control. The decisions you make, the thoughts that you have, the actions you take have influence. And so knowing that you can do that and reminding yourself of past times when you did that can really help us hone in on that bravery and being more courageous. Taking time to focus on your motivators, strengths, and values. Staying focused on what works. In approaching situations where we may need to be brave, it could involve feeling uncomfortable or feeling somewhat vulnerable. And with that, comes many different emotions, and you may start to feel the need to shut down or back away or not be involved. And if we can remind ourselves of what's most important, what motivates us rather than what stands in our way, then that supports, again, these brave acts. Most importantly, in the positive psychology research, and I think culturally, we need to acknowledge our progress. We don't take enough time to do that. Having a sense of accomplishment is really important for growth and well-being. And so even though there may be difficult situations that you faced and you may not get the outcome that you were striving for, consider the progress that you did make. Maybe you draft a plan and you haven't even had a chance to take steps toward that plan, but at least the plan is there, and acknowledge that. So a bit more about the courageous mindset. I found a really wonderful article, and I'll share this with you in the resource handout that I'll be sending along with this slide deck. And it was about courageous leadership. And Dr. Kathy Lassiter wrote about these 3 keys for courageous mindset, and I really like them. So one thing that we need to do is develop self-confidence and believe in yourself without limits. And this is all about activating that courage. So we have a tendency to be self-critical, strong tendency. If you're interested in exploring this more, I would recommend exploring self-compassion, and to maybe find a mentor, people who do believe in you, because I'd say the more you surround yourself with people who believe in you, the better. It really starts to, you'll start to believe it too, if you are having trouble. And then also keep worries in perspective. She cited a study that was done that basically said 96% of the worrying we do, it really has it's not real. There's no grounding for it. We're simply just worrying, ruminating, obsessing, spiraling, all of these things. And so we need to keep that in perspective. And sometimes you can do that by taking a step back, checking in with how you feel, and we'll do an exercise to practice that too. And lastly, she emphasized the importance to maintain an optimistic spirit, seeing situations as opportunities. And I'm not saying, we have to always see the glass as half full, but remind yourself that, when one door closes, maybe a window opens. Our door is open. It's up to you to walk through it. We have all these different metaphors, but we can see opportunity. It may not be what you were expecting. It may surprise you. And it's important for us to acknowledge those opportunities. When things are hard and you're not feeling super optimistic, we don't have to, some people say, you can fake it till you make it, just fake being optimistic. I don't really support that. I think it's important to be true to how you're feeling, but we can use some tools to help us move toward this optimistic sense and seeing things as opportunity. I'd like to share with you more about that. So there's a wonderful TED Talk that I'll share the link to that talks about the neuroscience of unpleasant feelings. And take a moment to consider the last time you had an uncomfortable or unpleasant feeling. And there's a list here. So maybe there was a time when you felt sadness, shame, helplessness, anger, vulnerability, embarrassment, disappointment, or frustration. It may have been with yourself or someone else or something that you read. But what happens when we have these uncomfortable or unpleasant feelings is it starts a biochemical rush in the body. And so the moment that you feel that embarrassment, there's just this wave, actually, for 60 to 90 seconds that moves through the body. Maybe that's when you feel your stomach tighten, or your face flush, or your palms sweat. And it lasts for a minute and a half. And then, in this research, it dissipates. And so the suggestion here is, for that minute and a half, it's important to acknowledge, okay, I'm feeling embarrassment. And then take time to be mindful. I think a challenge is that we tend to react during that rush, during the wave. We're making decisions. Rather than seeing the wave, let it pass, let the ocean calm again, and then we respond rather than react. So by doing that, we're able to move through the feeling and grow confidence and emotional strength in the process. And I'd like to offer a tool of something that we can do during that 60 to 90-second rush. So I'm going to explain it first, and then we're going to try it together because it involves holding your breath, and I don't want anybody to pass out while I'm explaining. So this is about deep diaphragmatic breathing. There's lots of research out there about the benefits to this. It really helps to oxygenate our systems. It activates the mind and the body in ways that are very beneficial to our well-being. And so what you do, and I have a box on the screen. So this square on the screen, you're going to picture the top, just guide your eye along the top edge of this screen. And what we do for this box breath is that you for 4 seconds, you're going to breathe in. You breathe in very deeply. And then for 4 seconds, you're going to hold your breath. And then 4 seconds, you're going to let it out. Exhale completely. Hold for 4. And that totals 16 seconds. So let's try this together. And do what works for you. If 4 seconds is a long time for you, and I don't want you to push yourselves to a point that's uncomfortable, but let's try this. So we're going to breathe in for 4. So let's breathe in. 2, 3, 4, and hold. 2, 3, 4. Now exhale. 2, 3, 4, and hold. 2, 3, 4, and breathe in. Now, during those 16 seconds, consider, what were you thinking about? Probably just your breath. You were only thinking about your breath. And that's the key to mindfulness. As beginners or people who have lots of practice with mindfulness, it's all about having that anchor and coming back to your breath. So if we're having these uncomfortable emotions, if we can just focus on the breath, if we can just come to this present moment without judgment and just breathe. This is one long inhale and exhale. Then that can help to settle us during this biochemical rush that may be happening. If you do this 4 to 6 times, there's your 1.5 minutes that helps you ride that wave of an unpleasant or uncomfortable emotion. And so this is a nice tool to use for yourself. You don't even have to tell anybody you're doing it. Or you can invite others to try this as well. So another tool that we can use is to take in the good. And this is an acronym, HEAL, H-E-A-L. And I learned about this from Rick Hansen, who focuses a lot of his expertise on neuroplasticity. And that's all about creating pathways in the brain so that as situations arise, it becomes more of a default, to respond rather than react, or to really savor the good in what's happening rather than seeing all of the harm or all of the bad that may be happening. And I wouldn't say that this is denial. I think this is more about, really focusing our attention, choosing where we want to put our focus, which is really important in being courageous and just day-to-day living. So the model we have here, taking the good. So the first thing you do is activate a positive experience. And then the next steps are to install it into your brain. So in the same way we took time to think about an unpleasant or uncomfortable feeling you had recently, take a minute to bring to mind something positive that happened. It could be tiny, it could be something very small or something significant. But consider a positive experience that you had lately. Maybe just thinking back to today, this morning, earlier this morning, or yesterday. And as you think about this positive experience, enrich it. So start to fill in the details. What happened? Who said it? How did it make you feel? Maybe there was a physical sensation. Maybe it brought a smile to your face. You felt more connected with someone. Name that person, picture their face. Really enrich this positive experience. And then, like a sponge absorbing water, we want to absorb this and really commit it to memory. Maybe it brings back those same feelings. Maybe it brings a smile to your face, or helps you feel more calm, at ease, more energized. And really take that in. And the optional opportunity here is to then link this positive experience to a negative one. And what's meant here is that you have the opportunity to almost replace the feeling that you're left with from an uncomfortable moment with something positive. So, as an example, maybe this is helpful. If I wake up in the morning and I was in a situation where there was a lot happening the day before, you wake up in the morning, you get a text message that takes you right back to those frustrated feelings that you had yesterday. Somebody's making a comment to you, and you just, you thought you put that behind you yesterday, and here it comes again. And so we have an opportunity, right? I was frustrated yesterday. Maybe I was embarrassed or angry yesterday, and now it's all coming back. But if we do take a moment and say, okay, today I have more clarity and I see this as a new day. I had a positive experience. I made an effort to connect with someone yesterday and share with them about my frustrations. They listened to me, they talked to me, they comforted me. We got to a point where we could even laugh a little bit, and that felt so good. It felt so good to connect with my trusted, listening partner, and know that I'm growing. Even though I was angry yesterday, I'm growing. And as you bring back those good feelings of growth, even though it's spurred out of something that was started negative, we can start to make the default this seeking of opportunity. So even though the text message sparks negative, the memory can shift us to positive. And you don't always have to make that connection. It's optional for a reason. But I wanted to offer this tool because I think it's something that could be interesting to play with a bit, if you will, and just try it. So I wanted to provide some information about what I think is important as we are listening to one another. I just mentioned that you have that trusted listener who can help you figure out how you're feeling and maybe going from more negative to more positive. So the keys to active listening are really to focus on the connection. It's not about the solution. So you don't need to listen for the fixing or the solving or the, reasoning. And we need to have engaged body language. We need to listen when we're really ready, show people that we can be attentive to their needs. And also look for that in others. If people are not showing engaged body language, maybe it's not the right time to open up to them. We need to tune in to others as well. And ultimately, and this is very important, I think, as part of a bravery workshop, is respect. This is a common core value. I'd make the assumption for all of us here, and many people around the world, respect is important. And we want to do that in our generous listening, in our sharing, the bravery that we exhibit. It's important that we always be respectful, and that we receive respect. Okay, so this is called WOOP. So you'll see there's the WOOP. And this is all about cultivating that courageous mindset, that sense of agency, those building blocks that we need to do something that may be slightly out of our comfort zone. And keep in mind, this is something that you're choosing to do. You're planning for it. This is a proactive step. And sometimes simply planning is helpful. For some people, there may be a need to put that plan in action, or to take action without the chance to plan. So my hope is that this is a useful tool in any scenario where you can always think things through. As part of bravery, we may be faced with fear or some of those uncomfortable feelings, and planning can help us to work through those feelings and feel like, okay, I can confidently move forward. Or the whirlwind of overwhelming thoughts, maybe ruminating, self-critical thought is getting in the way of being able to figure out, are my worries really valid? Is this really happening? And so if we can take time to do some writing, think about what we want, maybe think about what the obstacles are, and then plan for what we want to do, that helps us gain clarity, gain confidence, gain courage. You may figure out in this planning process that you don't need to do anything. And so I think that's actually a helpful result as well. So it's all about this process that we're navigating. So I'm going to hold off from providing examples, and I'm just going to walk you through this. So you really have an opportunity to think. I'm going to give you space to think. So on your paper, let's define your goal. So what is your wish? And this is the big, the big picture, right? The end. Maybe there's an intention that you have, something you want to put into practice, or maybe there's a change that you would like to make. So define your goal. And the next step is to think about the outcomes. So take a minute to daydream about that outcome. What does it really look like for you if you were to accomplish this goal, this wish? Maybe the influences it would have in different areas of your life or in how you're feeling. Maybe it opens a door or closes a door, opens a window. And just kind of jot down what those outcomes are. Say these outcomes could also be called motivators. These are what motivate you, right? So I want X goal, so that these outcomes can happen. These should be things that are important to you, or maybe it's important to someone else. And like we would in a classroom setting, when you're ready to move on to the next thing, just glance up at me and then I'll have a good gauge on what we're ready for. Okay, so you're going to be writing down your obstacles next. So as we think about, moving toward this goal, there may be obstacles that arise. And in doing some planning, it's important to consider an obstacle that may come up, because then we can be proactive about how we would address it. So again, jot down any obstacles that may come. You don't need any structure here. You can just make some notes for yourself. Could be factors beyond your control, like time or, current events, unplanned interruptions, or it could be something that is an obstacle that you do have some influence over, like maybe it's your mindset, doubting yourself, or spending too much time with somebody who doubts you and listening to their criticism. And this may cause some discomfort. And so I don't want us to stay in that for too long. But the reason we're listing our obstacles is so that we can come up with a plan of how we can move forward. So as you look over the first 3 parts of this, now we're going to start to make our plan. So it's a simple fill in the blank sentence exercise. So we're going to say if, and then choose from your obstacles list. If this happens, then, and you'll list an action of maybe what you could do. And just take a few minutes to go through a couple of those and list it out for yourself. I think this is a nice example. If your wish is to make time for, family, and the outcome is, you feel happier, your family's happier, you're taking this workshop, maybe an obstacle is, the workshop goes too long. So in your if then plan, if 12:30 rolls around, then I'm going to politely excuse myself from the workshop and go spend time with family. And then okay, when 12:30 hits, I have a plan of what I can do. All right, so as I look around the room, I definitely see some wonderful reflecting, planning happening. If you all had thought bubbles, I feel like the screens would be full of thought bubbles, which is great. I hope it feels productive. We may be tapping into something that requires much more thought and time, but you're already taking a small action step. The planning itself, just simply choosing a wish, is an action all in itself. And so be sure to acknowledge yourself for that. Take hold of that. You're taking steps already. And there's a wonderful book that I've come across in my research. And I'll tell you, it's right here. It's full of Post-its. You can tell it's my favorite. So it's Creating Well-Being, and I'll include this in the resource that I send you. but it's by Pamela Hayes, Hays. And what she talks about is, as we're creating well-being in our lives, sometimes it's about changing how we think. And sometimes it's about taking a small action. So as we consider bravery, maybe it is just shifting how we're thinking about something. Acknowledging, oh, this is a worry. I'm gonna shift to something that inspires my confidence rather than my worry. Or it could be a small action, so maybe you're not ready to stop worrying. You want to sit down, you're going to write down your wish. You're going to write down this obstacle. We'll come back to it later, but at least you wrote it down. And so I really like that. Hopefully it's helpful to share as well. Just wanted to also offer some mindfulness. I know that we have come to the end of our official time, so I'm going to send you a link to a guided mindfulness practice. It's my voice, so hopefully that's good news. And it's going to kind of walk you through what could be a planning exercise. But you're going to take time to think about, setting an intention, and then consider something that you may be doing that's not serving you well, that you want to stop. Something you may be doing that, something new you want to introduce, something to start that will serve you better, and something that you're doing that is actually working really well for you and you want to continue. So really carving out some mindful time to think through that could be a nice tool as well. And with that, that wraps up our workshop. So just know I'll be here till the very end. So we're saying goodbye, but it's just for now if you want to stick around and ask any questions. But feel free to unmute and connect with our group. Thank you.
Yay!
Thank you so much. This has been awesome.